The weekend began with a march of up to 200 people to the North Precinct of Portland's Police Bureau. Police used unoccupied patrol cars as a barricade and say that over the next 3 hours, some in the crowd threw softball-sized rocks, glass bottles, ball bearings, metal railroad spikes, and other objects at the cars. By 1 a.m., police declared the event a riot and began moving the protesters out and had more rocks thrown at them from the crowd. 9 people were arrested. Sociologist Randy Blazak said the nightly violence is, among other things, moving many people to think about moderate ways to reform policing.
The more extreme element kind of brings people to the middle. When they see the folks who want to kind of graffiti and smash the windows of police cars, it makes them kind of take a second look at the more moderate notion of what does defund the police mean.
Saturday, a different sort of protest. Members of the right gathered in downtown Portland to express their support for police. It included members of a group called the Proud Boys, known for fighting with Antifa members from the left in various cities around the country, including Portland. As the day wore on, counter-protesters showed up and the two sides went at it with pepper spray, bear spray, clubs, and fists. Police did not try to break it up and later said that because of the ongoing nightly protests, they only had 30 officers available. Some had worked the riot overnight and that it would not be safe to intervene. Blazak, the sociologist, said that was a mistake because, like it or not, that sent a message.
And that certainly sends a message, though. I mean, there is a big perception problem here with police, and that police somehow reinforce racist forces, whether it's internal or external, that police have sort of turned a blind eye to white nationalists in the streets of Portland.
Many on social media pointed to this Proud Boy who has an outstanding warrant for his arrest. He's not following directions from his probation officer. Many wondered why he was not arrested on the spot. Later, cameras captured this man apparently pointing a revolver at the crowd as he stood behind the lines on the conservative right.
The concern is that sends a message that the police have a vested interest in the racist history of policing and are resistant to change, which is only going to bring the protesters out in force.
Couldn't it also be possible, though, that they really are just exhausted and low on numbers and there was nobody else to call?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a completely reasonable assumption given how long these protests have been going on.
Later in the afternoon, both sides left. But Saturday night, hundreds gathered at the Kelly Building on East Burnside. Again, some people threw items at police, and the event was eventually declared a riot. 14 people were arrested. Sunday night, the focus moved again to North Precinct. Eventually, a riot was declared, and 23 people were arrested. The end of a chaotic weekend in Portland. In Northeast Portland, Pat Doris, KGW News.